Hello and welcome to this interview. Today we will be chatting with Orenjikun, an environment and background artist working in the entertainment industry. We will be discussing on his contribution in 3D Total's Artist Master Series Perspective and Depth. In this video, he talks about the importance of perspective, common beginner mistakes, and his biggest advice to aspiring artists.
All right. I go by Orenji on Instagram, Orenjikun, in some other places, Orenjikun Art. And yeah, I'm an artist who works in the animation industry, primarily on backgrounds, and I'm from Australia. So a bit about me. I grew up making art and have been making art since as young as I could remember. In high school, I had some vague aspirations of becoming an artist, but instead I ended up attending university for architecture. Um, so I chose that because I thought it would be like a good fit for my interests in art and mathematics. Um, and after completing my bachelor's degree, I took a year off before I would do my master's because I was, a little bit burnt out and I wanted to see what else was out there. And so during that year, I became interested in animation and I decided to see how far I could get with that. So I spent 8 months building a portfolio for backgrounds in animation. And at the end of the year, I applied to a few places and I ended up landing my first contract in animation. So ever since then, I've been working in animation and I never went back to do my master's. So goodbye architecture. And yeah, that's been basically what started my journey as an artist. And about a year ago or so, I started posting like tutorial content online, which I think is what people know me most know me for now. And yeah, that's basically it.
I think it's funny how like a lot of artists share very similar experiences with like not believing that they can do art for as a living, and it's like we're just gonna do something different. And it's usually I
Yeah.
usually tend to hear architecture or like computer science. It's always like how it's because we have this idea that like, well, this I guess we can do
Yeah,
this.
you're not really taught that you can make a living in art.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that's the last thing most people think of, and it's like, wait, what? I remember when I also found out, I was like, hmm, really? You sure? You sure about that? Okay. But definitely it's always really interesting to see artists who, you get different like ends of the pond, and it's like, oh no, I knew I was gonna be an artist right off the bat. I knew that was what I was going to do. And here people are like, nah, it took me a while to finally like admit that like this is something I could actually do. But regardless, like it's so interesting to see like how people eventually, go down different routes and end up becoming what they always actually authentically wanted to be. And I think that's what makes everyone's story unique and interesting and just like genuinely you know interesting to listen to. I wanted to ask a bit more about like your inspirations when it came to background designs. Like what pulled you to background design? What are the aesthetics you like when you see backgrounds? What made you be like when was the first moment that you were like, yeah, this is it, right? Like I want to do this. I love this. It's like I I'm what captivated you so much to go down that path? What inspired you? Talk a bit about your inspirations.
So I think there's maybe two things that kind of helped kickstart this passion for me, and that was at the time I was following an artist who um, I liked their art, and I saw in their bio it said um, I think it said background layout at Flying Bark, and these are all words I don't understand. I don't know what that meant, so I googled it, and I found out that background layout is a part of the pipeline in animation where they draw the backgrounds in black and white before they get colored. And Flying Bark was an animation company. And I saw this artist had also formerly worked in architecture as well, so had a similar background to me. So I thought that was really interesting. I was like, oh, how did she do that? I actually ended up emailing her and getting some advice. And funnily enough, my first job was at Flying Bark, so full circle moment there. And another one was I came across the art of Alia Chen and Felicia Chen. They're these two sisters that make really gorgeous art. And until that point, I hadn't really been exposed to art like that before. And the best way I can explain it was like an imaginative kind of keyframe scene where it looked like it was out of a movie, the way it was illustrated and the way like a story was being told through the art. And yeah, up until that point, I hadn't really known much about animation and about how they use art in animation to drive the story and to kind of brainstorm ideas before it hits the big screen. So then I kind of became interested in VizDev, visual development for animation. I haven't done a whole lot of VizDev work yet, but that's definitely something I'd like to do in the future. But yeah, that's basically two of the things that kind of kickstarted like an interest in backgrounds.
I absolutely love Aaliyah and Felicia's work. It's ridiculously stunning. Like blows me away every time I look at it. Like I go back and like I remember the what's called the Umbrella Academy one. I think it was
Yeah.
Alicia that did that. Oh, I'm not sure,
Mm.
but it was absolutely gorgeous. I was blown away. Beautiful,
Yeah.
absolutely stunning. Their backgrounds, the narrative, everything, the emotion, just all beautiful and all gorgeous. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can understand. Very valid inspirations. Um, I actually also see from behind you, you have a lot of like art books as well. So definitely also an art book enthusiast. I love art books, hence working with 3D Total. It's like one of my favorite things to collect and like nerd out on, like just flipping through and looking at all the beautiful art.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
I love it.
so we're here to talk about your feature in 3D Totals, the Artist Master Series that focuses on perspective, which is oof, a very it's a topic, right? It's a
Hmm.
conversation started in the art community. Before we jump into the book, I want to know, can you talk a bit about perspectives, your thoughts on perspective, why you think it's important, like common mistakes. Just give us your general thoughts on why you think like perspective is such an important thing, and maybe if your thoughts on why you think it's such a intense topic for beginners, especially, and why you think people tend to, you know, avoid that topic.
So I think perspective in art is important not only as a foundational element for creating art that's based in reality, but also for its important role in storytelling. Because a good grasp on perspective can help you to depict camera angles in a filmmaking and composition sense, and to help tell a story through your art. And foundationally is, I think, the most important fundamental to help depict things with a sense of depth and volume, breaking away from symbolic representations, the type of drawings we do as children of like a house. Um, the reason why I think people find it so challenging and difficult at the beginning is because it has like a steep learning curve. Before you end up using perspective to make anything that's like exciting or gratifying, you have to put in a lot of like effort, time, and practice before you get there. And I think that kind of practice can be quite tedious, especially for perspective, since it's a lot of it's very repetitive, like rote learning. You got to draw things over and over again, and to develop like the understanding of how things work. And yeah, I think that's just a hurdle that people have to get over. Not everything in art is, exciting and fun. Some of it's a little bit boring, but I think if you have a passion for learning, it doesn't have to be that boring. Like it can be still very gratifying, like every step of the way. Because just in my experience, over the past few years, quite intensely studying art and learning and improving is that it happens gradually over time, and it's not gonna happen immediately, and it's certainly not gonna happen after your first 2 days doing it. So if you are finding it difficult, just stick it through. I promise you, it'll click eventually, and keep pushing yourself for sure.
I 100% agree with everything you said. I still struggle with perspective. It's a challenging topic. Um, but definitely it's not a one-time thing. It's definitely a journey, something that, you kind of have to just keep pushing. And like eventually you're gonna get a hang of things and understand things. And like you said, I think fun learning is very important. Like you don't have to make it a chore, right? Like the moment you tell yourself this is difficult and this is boring and this is gonna be frustrating, you're already setting yourself up for like failure, right? You have to like try to say, okay, this is an experience, it's a journey. I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna improve, and I'm gonna make this interesting, entertaining, and like a fun learning experience. And that's why I encourage like lots of artists to try to like push beyond unconventional routes to learn. That's why I love your tutorials. They're very fun, very quick to digest, and very jam-packed with a lot of information that's so valuable. And it's like this guy just telling you this is a quick way to do this. Here's how you understand how to use this, and it really is so informative, so fun. You don't even realize you're learning actually, but you're like kind of like picking up so much at the same time. You don't have to make it some sort of like boring physics class kind of situation where it's all technical and it's not really. It doesn't always have to be so boring, I guess. It's all about just having an open mindset and being willing to like pick up these new information. So yeah, I definitely 100% agree. So I think personally, me, like, let's dive into the book using this transition, but it's like I love using art books. Uh, and I find that like art books are a very helpful way to also understand. I was able to pick up color theory like with James Gurney's book and 3D Total's book. It was it's like so ridiculous how much information is packed into an art book and how much just one art book can like make things click. So I'm really super excited and happy to hear that Theory Total is like releasing a book that focuses on perspective because um up until now it's like you hardly hear books that feature perspective. And from the looks of things with 3D Totals, like previous books on like color theory and composition and how in-depth that was, like I am really looking forward to seeing like how in-depth this is going to be. Like, because I'm sure this is gonna be like a very packed book with so much information that's also pretty understandable to digest. But I want to hear your opinion regarding your contribution. Can you tell us a bit about the book, your contribution to the book, and yeah, just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So my contribution is a tutorial walkthrough for a fully fleshed scene, touching on my typical processes and various tips and tricks for implementing perspective into your artworks. And yeah, I think it breaks down some of the trickier concepts, and it makes things easier to understand with application. So instead of being like, oh, this is, a vanishing point and you do this and this. In these tutorials, like we will say there's a vanishing point and then we'll show you how it works. And then you'll see how that fundamental and how that guideline, how that construction, how we see it through from start to finish, and how that helps you to lay the groundwork for your piece in terms of perspective.
No, nice. That sounds very interesting to me. I think, especially when it comes to perspective, which is a lot more technical and like one of the more technical aspects of the fundamentals, definitely like I think being able to visibly see and understand how, okay, this is how it works and how it's broken down is definitely going to be it's very informative and very beneficial. So yeah, I think that's gonna be something. that like people could look forward to. I wanted to also ask, what do you think is one of the most common mistakes in perspective, actually? Like, especially the most common mistakes you see in perspective, or maybe misconceptions, even. Like, it doesn't even have to be like technical or both. Common mistakes, misconceptions when it comes to perspective.
So I think that very commonly when you see beginners like attempt perspective drawing, it's very easy to find inconsistencies in the way that the perspective is depicted. Say, for example, parallel lines not meeting at a vanishing point, or like the indication of the horizon line not being consistent across the whole painting or drawing. Like maybe sometimes you'll see the bottom of a plane or the top of a plane, but like not correctly, you know. And I think that's something that we can avoid by kind of developing better understanding of the fundamentals of the horizon line and vanishing points. And the best way to do that is to start small. Because I think a lot of artists, they like to start with drawing people, because I think that's the most it's the most like relatable thing to draw, and it's the thing that excites people most. It's honestly the most complex form you could be drawing. It's just that lots of people that we see have gotten really good at it because they've practiced it heaps. um, it is no surprise that it is difficult for beginners at all. Um, so I think it's best to start simple and start with like, the cubes, the cylinders, the cones, and stuff like that, and then gradually kind of ramp it up to like more practical applications, like for example, like looking at a mug on your desk or a pencil case, and seeing if you can like break down how perspective is working. Like when you're looking at it, maybe you sketch it out and you like trace the vanishing points and stuff like that, and just slowly like develop like a stronger understanding and ramp yourself up to more difficult things, like for example, an office building, a house, you know maybe even a car, a truck, something like that. And just really explore like a breadth of subject matter to help you become comfortable with using um, horizon lines and vanishing points before you get into the really complicated stuff, and cool stuff. I can understand why we want to jump straight into it, but every now and then on the side, it's good to break down the more simple things to develop a better understanding.
Definitely. When you said wonky horizon lines and battleship, I was like, that's my environment in a nutshell. Because I suck with environment. I definitely am looking forward to the book because I need help when it comes to perspective, honestly. I am true and true a character girl, and I need to work on my perspective. So yeah, I wanted to also ask regarding the book. What was like it what was when 3D Total reached out to you and you thought, okay, perspective. What do I, how how did you come up with, okay, this is what I want to do for the book, I'm assuming? Because once again, I only do the interviews. I just like knowing the behind the scenes a bit. Like, was it more like, oh, I think this is what I want to do? How did you decide on like this is what I want to contribute to the book?
So, like I said before, I think perspective can contribute to storytelling. So, when I was thinking of the illustration I would make that would feature perspective, I immediately kind of thought about what kind of piece I would make, what it would communicate to the audience, and what the perspective would have to do to help communicate that. And so I just like brainstormed like a little list of things that I would have to talk about if I were to make a piece like this. And that helped me like to brainstorm. It helped me to figure out the things that I would want to talk about in relation to perspective. And just throughout the process of actually creating the piece, I obviously used a lot of like techniques and implemented a lot of knowledge about perspective, which just naturally, I was like, yeah, I'll be able to talk about this and put it in the book. And I think my artwork is so based around perspective. Typically, it is typically because, as I said, I think it's the most important fundamental to depicting kind of realistic imagery that breaks away from symbolism. It is pretty much present in every piece of art that I do. So just naturally, there is so much to talk about it um, and to teach about that beginners might not know.
Definitely. I think it's such a broad topic. It's also like, I think one of the topics that might take the longest, at least for me, maybe, or at least for character people to like kind of wrap their heads around, which is funny because like even with characters, there you still need to understand perspective. Characters are not flat, like they're three-dimensional as well. And people, I think that it kind of clicked to me when I like realized when I was foreshortening, I was like, wait, this is
Yeah,
perspective, right? Like, why is this such a big deal in backgrounds and environments, but not a big deal in characters for me, right? It's kind of the same thing, the same context. You just have to the same concept. I mean, it's just a different context, right? It's funny, right? But oh yeah, definitely. I think that's very interesting, and like I said, looking forward to the book. But I've actually been using the terms beginner a lot. But perspective isn't limited to just beginners. However, I wonder this book. Who would you recommend this book to? Would you say like I recommend this book to beginners, intermediate, or everyone? Because I just want to know who do you think this book is best suited for?
so I think that this book honestly covers a lot throughout, and it can kind of take you through from beginner through to intermediate all the way through to advanced. I think because there are many concepts revolving around perspective, and each kind of fundamental concept you can dig deeper and deeper and deeper and get more and more out of it as you kind of progress and understand more and begin to implement more and more of it into your art. There's always more for you to learn, I think. And this book covers a lot of that. Um, there, there is a lot of like nitty gritty, mathematical kind of stuff related to perspective that might not even necessarily be necessary for most artists, depending on what kind of art you make. Um, but it's there and it exists, and this book features quite a bit of it. So yeah, like I said, I think it's suitable for all kind of levels of progression that you are currently in your art journey.
Definitely. I find like some people kind of feel what's the word I can use right now? Feel uh skeptical sometimes when purchasing some books because they're like, oh, no, it's too advanced for me. It's too advanced for me. But I personally find that, especially with a lot of Three Totals books, they do have a good way of like carrying everyone along, and it's not like you feel left out if you're not at a certain level. You kind of just they break it down in a way that it's like, yeah, I can get this regardless of like what level you are. And like if you're more advanced, you're kind of like, actually, I didn't know about this. I can add that to
Yeah.
my list of tools, which I think is pretty cool, definitely. Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm very, very excited for the book. I'm sure it has an amazing lineup. You already have some. I watch your like videos and I'm like, yeah, so definitely excited. Before we wrap up, because we're already done with most of the questions, before we wrap up, I just wanted to know, do you have any general advice for beginner or aspiring artists, maybe specifically to perspective or just general advice? The table's yours.
Yeah, I'll just give a bit of general advice and just say to people that if you have any aspirations or dreams related to art, go for it because, as alluded to in the initial kind of explanation of my story and where I came from, not very many people get encouraged to do art, and I feel that many others were or currently are in the same position that I was in without that kind of encouragement from others. And I just want to give that encouragement to all of you guys out there because um, without me having the courage to go out there and pursue my interests and my dreams, I wouldn't be where I am today. You know, it's kind of crazy because this was only I think 4 or 5 years ago when I began this journey when I quit architecture. And to be here 5 years later today, being published, in a book that teaches people about art is really incredible. Like I'm teaching people about art now when 5 years ago I didn't even know, you know, half of this stuff that I'm teaching you guys today. So I just want to say you guys to just go out there and pursue the things that you want to pursue and don't let, other people get in the way of that and to tell you otherwise.
Definitely. It's crazy how things can change in like such a short amount of time if you keep believing, if you keep pushing, and if you just like go for it. Sometimes that's all it takes. You just need to like say, okay, I'm gonna go for this. Whatever happens, happens. I'm just gonna go for this because I believe this is what I want to do. And I'm true to myself. Definitely. Solid advice. Thank you so much, Orenji.